CBS's Bari Weiss apparently allowed Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu to take his pick on who would be interviewing him on 60 Minutes in order to snag that interview. Homegirl really wanted a war criminal on 60 Minutes, and she was willing to make the environment as friendly and positive as possible for Netanyahu to make this happen. How do I know this? Well, it's been reported on. And by the way, it was strange that Lesley Stahl, who is one of the normal correspondents for 60 Minutes, wasn't the one who carried out the interview. In fact, Major Garrett, who is not one of 60 Minutes' normal correspondents, was the one who was able to do the interview because that's the person who Netanyahu chose. So the 60 Minutes interview was Netanyahu's first major US broadcast interview since the start of the Iran war. And it turns out that Weiss booked Netanyahu herself. So Major Garrett only got the assignment after Weiss gave Netanyahu a say in the matter as part of a last ditch effort to clinch the interview for the network. Okay, so hold on. Let me just understand something here right now. You have this woman who is serving as an operative for a foreign country. She has infiltrated our media. She turned a legacy outlet, CBS News, into a joke. And she did it all for Israel because, as she says, she's a Zionist fanatic. Okay, great. And she had to work hard to clinch the interview with Netanyahu. Are you kidding me right now? I mean, how embarrassing, but okay, that's apparently what happened. Now, during the interview, Netanyahu asserted that the war against Iran, which the US is carrying the entire burden of, isn't over yet. This is what he said. The Iran war accomplished a great deal, but it's not over because there's still nuclear material, enriched uranium, that has to be taken out of Iran. There are still enrichment sites that have to be diminished. So there he goes, pretending like he's worried about nuclear weapons, when in reality, he wants regime change in Iran. That's all he cares about. So he said that. But here's why I give you his quote again. That statement led to a question about, well, seems like you want boots on the ground to get the enriched uranium. So we talking IDF, we talking US troops. So Garrett, and I give him credit for this, he deserves credit for asking this question. If it's necessary, how do you envision the highly enriched uranium will be removed from Iran? To which Netanyahu responded, you go in and you take, laughs, it out. Garrett then asks, with what? Special forces from Israel, special forces from the United States, working in tandem under international supervision, how? And he responded with, well, I'm not gonna talk about military means, but the President Trump had said to me, I wanna go in there. So basically he's saying US troops. Trump wants it. Trump, it's not me, I'm not the one. Who, me? Not me. Trump's the one who wants to send US troops to Iran to get the enriched uranium. That's all. So yeah, it'll be US troops. So we gave him credit for asking that question because that's a question that should be asked every single time you hear a representative, a politician, anyone from Israel argue that a war needs to continue, a war that they wanted, that we're unfortunately involved in continues, okay? So, but most of Major Garrett's questions, I just have to be honest with you guys, were incredibly biased in favor of the Israeli perspective. And that did stand out to me. Aside from that one question that I thought was a really good, tough question, the rest of the interview was framed in a way that's favorable to the Israeli perspective. And I thought that was strange. Now that I understand the decisions and the wheeling and dealing that was taking place behind the scenes with Bari Weiss, allowing Netanyahu to choose who would interview him, now that all makes sense. The tone of the interview, the way the questions were framed, that all makes a lot of sense. By the way, Lesley Stahl, who by the way is 84 years old, looking pretty good for 84. She's been issued to do an interview with Benjamin Netanyahu. So I can't even imagine how she must be feeling right now, considering the fact that he agreed to be interviewed, but she got booted. So a more friendly interviewer would be asking the questions. Now, Lesley Stahl, the longtime 60 Minutes star, had spent months apparently trying to land the Netanyahu sit down. According to the status newsletter, she was bypassed in favor of Garrett. The move marked the second time in recent months that Bari Weiss reportedly secured a marquee interview for 60 Minutes, only to hand the assignment to Garrett instead of one of the program's own correspondents. So the first time Bari Weiss did this was to interview Pete Hegseth back in March. So I just want to pause for a second and ask, do you think that this reflects well on Major Garrett? Because I gotta be honest with you, if I were in his shoes and I knew that both Pete Hegseth and the Prime Minister of Israel chose me to conduct the interview because they thought it was gonna be better PR for them, I'd be embarrassed. I'd be super embarrassed. I would not think that that speaks highly of the work that I do. And I would think that this discredits me as a journalist, right? I don't know what Major Garrett is feeling, but I really hope that this has given him at least a moment of pause, maybe some self-reflection over the fact that he's seen as the person that can be steamrolled and used as a tool for positive PR. Not good. That's not good. But let's get to the deceptive editing, because Megyn Kelly pointed something out that I thought was interesting. Now, Megyn Kelly also thinks that 60 Minutes intentionally sliced and diced the Kamala Harris interview in order to make her sound good. And this, of course, was the whole lawsuit that Donald Trump had filed against CBS because he feels like they were trying to throw the election by editing an interview in a way that made Kamala Harris look really good when she was actually terrible. I mean, I've said this before, I'll say it again. I don't think the edited version of her answer made her look good. I don't think her full word salad answer made her look good. I think both answers looked bad. But I wanted to give you that context because Megyn Kelly totally bought the deceptive editing thing when it came to Kamala Harris. So you should be warned of that. However, she's now making the argument that 60 Minutes used deceptive editing in this interview with Benjamin Netanyahu. Let's take a look.
In March, when we showed you a misleading edit of Pete Hegseth's interview with Major Garrett, when the show suggested that Secretary Hegseth was responding to a question about Israel dragging the US into the war, and the extended interview showed the question didn't mention Israel at all. There's manipulation going on over at CBS, especially around the topic of Israel. I wonder why.
So that's an example of actual manipulation. That's real manipulation. Now, when you're in broadcast news on television, obviously, you got to go to commercial break. And so you have to, it sucks. You're supposed to shorten answers in a way where you don't change the message, but you just clean it up. So you can deal with the time constraints as a result of being part of broadcast news. As we all know, 60 Minutes then posted the entirety of Kamala Harris's answer on social media. It's not like they were trying to hide it. Besides which, most people these days are getting their news from social media versus broadcast television. So, but the case of the Pete Hegseth interview that she's pointing out, she's absolutely right about that. I totally agree with her on that. Because in this case, you're being misleading about what Pete Hegseth is talking about. You're making it seem like he's referring to Israel when Israel didn't come up in that conversation. So it apparently happened again on Sunday, as you're about to hear Megyn Kelly talk about in the next video.
Also, several references by Netanyahu to the Americans turning against Israel, saying that they also hate America. Why did Bari Weiss and her CBS cut from the interview of Netanyahu all the references by Netanyahu attacking Americans who have questions about Israel as anti-American? Is it possible they believed that might make him look bad and further alienate Americans?
Maybe. But I gotta be honest with you, the guy says things that makes him look bad on a regular basis. So it's not just with 60 Minutes either. So apparently Bari Weiss was accused just last week of having meddled in another CBS show Sunday morning. For the April 5th report about Israeli archaeological digs in the West Bank, Weiss made last-minute edits and script changes, according to Zateo. A network insider told the publication that Weiss had never jumped in editorially on a Sunday morning story until this one. But guys, this is why she was installed as the head of news at CBS. This is the reason why. David Ellison admitted as much during an interview with the FT. So like, why are we? I'm not surprised. I don't trust CBS as a source anymore. It sucks. What I'll do if they've done original reporting is try some way, somehow to corroborate it if I'm going to use them as a source on the show. But I generally stay away from CBS now because I don't want to be misled and then in turn mislead my audience about what's actually happening. So one of the subjects for the interview, Zaid Azhari, who's a cultural heritage researcher and leader of the Save Sebastia campaign, even stated that his interview was selectively edited to falsely portray him as someone who embraces, as someone who erases Jewish history. According to Zateo, he told me his interview was edited in a way that portrayed him as a stupid Palestinian who's just a resident from Sebastia, referring to one of the oldest continuously inhabited Palestinian towns in the West Bank and an area home to several ancient sites. Hopefully the IDF doesn't bomb those ancient sites, but I can't promise they won't. Because as we know, they've had no problem bombing like World Heritage sites and things like that in other countries. So it's a problem when people of any country no longer trust their institutions. Our media institutions, certainly corporate media and legacy media, has lost so much trust. You look at the ratings for CBS News, their viewership has tanked ever since Bari Weiss was chosen for the role she's currently serving in. People actually want the truth. People want to know what's really happening with the war in Iran. They hear the lies from Trump, or they hear Trump's statements about how we've obliterated Iran, and something's telling them there's this little itch they got to scratch. Like they got to figure out, is he telling the truth? And then you do a little bit of digging and realize that our media institutions oftentimes just regurgitate what people in positions of power have to say. Anytime you see a leak in the media, anytime you see that a publication has a scoop, anonymous sources were willing to speak to them about some big scandal, well, those sources have an agenda. And so when the New York Times does this mega report on how the Israelis fooled Trump into engaging in this war against Iran, who leaked that story? Was it maybe a potential candidate for the Republican primary in 2028 who doesn't want to be associated with cheerleading a war that has been devastating for the American people? Could it be someone like JD Vance? I don't know, I'm just speculating. But JD Vance appears to be making moves to run in 2028 and knows that the stank of the Iran war is gonna hurt him. And if you read that report carefully, you'll notice that it keeps talking about how he was like the voice against the war. And he was saying that we should proceed with caution. There are other reports, by the way, indicating that JD Vance wanted Trump to go in, be super aggressive, and get out. I'm not buying the JD Vance is a dove, not a war hawk argument, especially when he was created. He's a creation of Peter Thiel, co-founder of Palantir, which is profiting handsomely from war as we speak. So just some stuff to keep in mind. All right, we've got a few more minutes, so I'm gonna read some comments before we head on over to our bonus episode for our members, tyt.com/join to become a member. Box, you might watch more content than I do because I see your comments in comment sections of like other shows. And by the way, super ideologically diverse. Good on you, I love that. But Box writes in and says, I think Trump's actual plan is to Suck up our inflation with gas prices at this point. Vote gooder teamwork. Yep. I think Cenk was right when we were talking about this yesterday, where it's like, none of this really makes sense. It's gotta be blackmail. It's gotta be something more than simple corruption, because this is destroying his legacy. And we know how egotistical that man is. So Pakistani American Hawk Sentinel says, Dan roasted Randy fine, but Randy's ego is so huge, it has its own zip code. If he tries to debate, the stage will collapse from the sheer cringe. So this is about the congressional race out of Florida. So Dan Bilzerian is challenging Randy Fine in that race. And I don't know, man. I have a feeling Randy Fine's gonna win re-election, which is so devastating. Can we just, it's such an injustice to know that there's a sitting member of Congress who, by the way, didn't he get caught on camera, like putting in votes on behalf of members of Congress who weren't there at the time, and then looking around to make sure he didn't get caught? Like, what was that? Did that get investigated? I gotta double check on that. But aside from that possible activity, he talks about starving people to death. He talks about devastating, destroying an entire population of people on behalf of a foreign country. The guy's unhinged. He should not be anywhere near a position of power, but here we are. He's in a position of power. All right, let's go over to more of our member comments. Box writes in our member comment section and says, I'm a simple man. I see Anna cry and I get mad. That's in regard to the donor story that I covered earlier. How could you not think about your own mother? I couldn't help but think about my own mom, and the idea that my mom's cadaver would end up in the hands of IDF soldiers makes me both furious, and that whole story just makes me so sad. All right. 32 Babyface says, I don't understand why Germany continues to send aid to Israel. I understand it. They were on the wrong side of history, and they're on the wrong side of history again. They're under the impression that helping Israel means helping the Jewish population. No, helping Israel is basically doubling down on more atrocities. So I don't get it, but they're doing it. So it is what it is. But I don't think history will, or the future will, look back kindly at Germany's behavior in aiding and abetting what Israel's doing. Same with the United States. I am so ashamed of what the US is up to, but we don't actually live in a real democracy where our voices are heard at the moment. So I love the people of this country, couldn't loathe the government more. And it's not a partisan thing. I want to be clear about that.
Every time you ring the bell below, an angel gets his wings. Totally not true, but it does keep you updated on our live shows.